Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Electric Car Hangout, the November edition. Happy to have you here. If anybody is here and not watching the Neuralink presentation, but welcome to those of you who are joining in. It's exciting. Today is obviously, like I said, the Neuralink presentation, and tomorrow is Tesla's semi delivery event. And we don't know exactly what to expect from that, but I'm excited, and I think it's gonna be a big change that's gonna snowball pretty fast. So, wanted to talk about that. If you have thoughts about that semi event, go ahead and put those in the comments, and I will add your thoughts to the mix here too. So, the exciting thing for me about the semi event is obviously it's finally here since the announcement in 2017 where they were saying they'd be delivered in 2019. So obviously a little late. A lot of people thought that it was vaporware, that it would never work, that you'd never get the range they claim out of it. But Elon has recently tweeted that the Tesla team did do 500 miles with an 81,000 pound, is that right? 81,000 pound truck. So EVs and hydrogen semis are able to go up to 82,000. And so they did 500 miles with 81,000. We don't know how much of that is the truck, how much of it is the actual payload, but it's exciting. And, a lot of people look to like the long haul truckers who, scorch their logbooks and, drive way more than they should, but, they do these monster hauls cross country. And the criticism is that, well, this Tesla semi isn't going to be able to do that, and that could possibly be the case. We'll have to see how things progress starting tomorrow. My thought is, especially if they're delivering these to Pepsi, they're going from distribution center to distribution center probably, and doing very predictable runs to start. That's my guess, where you'll have the mega charger for the semi at each of the hubs. It goes between a couple hubs. They get a bunch of data, and then see where they take it from there. I'm not expecting much more than that for tomorrow night. But the idea that you can charge while you're actually, getting loaded is a huge advantage, because you don't have to make that second stop for fueling. It's a slightly different world than the one I used to work in, but I used to work for an event company, and we would have trucks pull up, and we would sometimes take a few hours to load them because things had to be loaded in precisely and packed and strapped and blanketed and everything to go to their destination. And sometimes that was across the country. Sometimes it was packing up a case that would go on a ship and across the ocean. But most of the time it was packing up a truck like that to go to the convention center downtown, or to like a Chicago, or somewhere not that far away. And so you had this long load time, and in our case, which is atypical. Most people load pallets and things like that, and I'm sure Pepsi will be loading their stock pallets. But the truck drivers would always get frustrated because they're on the clock while that loading is taking place. And so here you've got a situation where maybe the truck loads in a half hour, but they're saying you can get 400 miles back in a half hour of charging. So if those chargers are on the dock, you back the truck up, you plug in, you let the dock crew do whatever they need to do, and you get your paperwork done and you get out of there, and you've already gone to the gas station. So workflow wise, I think this is going to be, I'm really excited to see that piece tomorrow of, how in the real world this is going to impact drivers. And I could see at this point, maybe they don't want a bunch of chargers on their dock at Pepsi for the initial launch. So it might be somewhere else in the yard. So you might drop a trailer, go to the yard, charge, then back. But hopefully this is all really well integrated and it's easy for drivers. I see a few people have joined now. Hi, Todd. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Jason. John. Jason wants to get a semi and convert it to a camper. I think a lot of people are in that boat. I would absolutely love to do that. That would be so cool. AZ says, evening all from central Wyoming. I drive semi-truck now for my job. Can't wait for a transition to EV. Getting ready to retire and just got a Model Y. My truck feels like the Flintstones. Yeah, I understand that feeling. That's how, when I first test drove a Model S or a Model 3 in 2018, I got back in my own car and went, what are we doing with this thing? This technology is so old. So I'm glad to hear that you're excited for the switch to EV trucks. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be, especially these initial deliveries probably aren't going to be used, long haul bombs across the country, but they don't need to be. There's plenty of tractor trailers, like I said, doing runs around, metro areas. I've got a friend who drives for a food supply company, and he's based out of Duluth, and most of the time his deliveries are just around Duluth. Sometimes he comes down to Hinckley, sometimes he goes over to I'm blanking on the name of the city, but his runs aren't ever that long, but still it requires the full truck and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing those, even if for a while, we still need the big, diesel trucks for the monster runs. I'm really curious, and AZ, if you're still on, I'd be curious of your thoughts on the sitting position. I used to drive a lot of box trucks, like the 28-foot, like moving truck kind of things. Used to drive those all the time, and sometimes the sight lines weren't great, but I don't know how sitting in the center would be, if that would feel too weird. But I guess then you'd have equal visuals on each side, and if you have cameras going too, that's another thing I'm going to be looking forward to tomorrow is kind of seeing how, hopefully they have some real drivers and get some of that reaction, even if it's just facial expressions when they look in there, if it's a, oh man, or if it's a, oh, this is cool. I think all of us who aren't in the, trucking world day to day, it's easy for us to look at that and go, oh, that's so cool. But, it's, if you work with it day to day, I wonder what the reaction's going to be. Steve, welcome. Oops, late again. Not too late. Not as late as that Neuralink presentation. I always think that someday one of these Elon things is going to start on time, and like a fool, I log on ahead of time. And of course, that just doesn't happen. Rewatching the semi-truck event, though, I did find it interesting that that presentation went pretty quickly. And then I realized as Franz drove the Roadster out of the back of the truck that, oh, they knew that Franz would be sitting in the back of the truck for this whole thing. So they had to have it a little more buttoned up and efficient. So maybe they need to do that for these other demos too. But Steve had a good video and some posts on Twitter about his trip for Thanksgiving with the Ioniq 5 and using Electrify America and some other charging solutions along the way on their trip for the holiday. That's at Plug and Play EV on YouTube. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Let's see. Classical says, "Hey Brian, my uncle's in the market for a new American sedan. I suggested a Tesla. First question, can it go plus 100 miles an hour for over 3 hours straight?" I told who's doing that? Where can you do that? And how do I sign up? I told him my Model 3 gets 358 miles. I also told him about 2 recent long road trips and how one of them cost $78 round trip. Yeah, that's a big advantage. And then he replied, "But how fast were you going? If you were going 60 miles an hour and I'm going 120, I'm going to burn energy at 4 times your rate. So the same trip cost me $160. How would I reply to that? I've got a couple relatives like that just find any excuse of why things won't work, and like, just like to some degree, with people like that, I just say, you know what, maybe the technology is not ready for you, and maybe in a couple years there will be something you like. And in that time, all their friends are going to have switched to EVs, and they're going to see that it's no big deal and come around on their own. Sometimes you just can't convince people close to you, and which is why I do things on YouTube, because I can say it out into the world. My family doesn't always have to hear it. And if they're curious enough, hopefully they'll check it out. I guess with people like that, I'd love to get input from people in the chat too, because a lot of people here have owned EVs for a while and might have some other good feedback as well. But in a lot of ways, there's going to be more demand for EVs than there's going to be supply for a while. So if some people hang out or, stay out of it for a while, as much as we as family members would like them to move on, I don't know how far you can push. I mean, you can, depending on your family member, it could just be they're giving you crap and just want to watch you squirm. And, I think the best response to that kind of stuff is, most people don't respond well to like sending them articles and things like that. The best response is, sharing like you did your road trip experience, how easy it was, how cheap it was, how, the charging isn't really a big deal. And, eventually you just hope it soaks in. That's my best take is, just share your experience, show them that it's not a big deal. If you haven't given them a test drive and it's something they might be into, if they really do drive 120 miles an hour, then they probably would like that 0 to 60 speed. I know I've got the long range Model Y, which is one of the slower Teslas, probably the slowest one they're currently making, and it still knocks the socks off of most, gas cars that people are driving around. So, that might be a way into if they're a speed demon, or take them to a track day or something, if that's something you guys are into. Hi, John. Welcome. John, I believe you're in Wisconsin and just got a new supercharger not too far from you, so congratulations on that. Classical says, the funny thing is that he's an engineer at NASA. I think if anybody were on board, it would be him. Yeah, you never know. I mean, sometimes it's, if you do a lot of technical stuff all day, maybe you want to tinker on, your old muscle car or something instead on your downtime. Yeah, Jason says they need to see it and go for a ride. Changed a lot of his family with that. And yeah, Jason's got the Plaid too, so that'll turn a lot of heads. Aaron says the easiest way to convince people to switch is to just let them drive. They'll change in a few minutes, yeah. John says most people are talking out of their butts. They have no idea what they're talking about and making stuff up. Yeah, I mean, that's, the people who say they drive, 1,000 miles in 8 hours, and it's like, well, that's not physically possible on any road. So, another thing you could do is, and maybe if they're NASA engineer types, they might be willing to go this route, would be, write down your daily drives or, your typical driving, and see how much of it is actually at 100 or 120 miles an hour. See how many times you're taking trips that are 500 miles or more. Most people just fly until they get an EV, and then all they want to do is road trip. No one needs to have a 400-mile range on a vehicle. You all got to stop and go to the bathroom. Yeah. John says, other John says, I've honestly thought that owning an EV is way more convenient. My gas cars always seem to need a fuel stop when I was in a hurry to get somewhere. Yeah, that you're late for work and have to stop for gas thing is frustrating. That used to happen to me. Dulo Smith says, hello all, my folks were very resistant. They had a Cadillac X4T or whatever the SUV is. It took one drive of my Model 3 long range, and they put an order for one Model Y the next day or the same day. Excellent. Steve, thanks. The 50,000 mile Model Y test was enlightening. Interesting to see the comparison to your past gas cars too. Thanks. That's a test I intend to keep doing. And I realized I didn't put this in the video, of course, because as I'm rewatching it after I've exported a video, I always think of that one other thing I probably should have put in it, but it's too late. It's shipped. But like some of the advantage I got of doing the test this time was better infrastructure, which I did cover, but also picking better places to charge, and being a little not as savvy as I would have liked to have been, but being a little more savvy with the car than when it was brand new. And like I said in that video, I think now if I were to do it again, which I don't plan on. Maybe in the spring I will. We'll see how many miles I've got at that point. But, you know, when you're in the moment and trying to eke out every second, it's hard to remember all the places you should look to make sure you are being as efficient, because you get your mindset on one plan. That means that's the metric I'm looking at. And, had I just gone over to the energy graph, which I want to talk about that in a second here, had I just gone over to that and said, oh, I have more than enough miles to get there, the way I've been driving, the way the current conditions are, I could have hit the road a couple minutes earlier, maybe got up to 500 miles with it. But, it was such a close result that really the differences are more about traffic and weather than they are about, how the battery's doing or things like that. So that was good news for me, that my car's still in relatively good health, and it's had a lot of supercharging, a lot of days where it's sat at home as I'm working at home too. But, we put a lot of miles quick on that thing. So, that's a fun test to do, and a good day of just, listening to podcasts or other people's. I'll connect my phone via Bluetooth and not watch, but play different YouTube videos or YouTube like discussions and things like that, and just have it on the charging pad, not watching it, but having it run through, and I can eat through a lot of content that way on those days. Let's see. AZ says, if I weren't going to retire soon, I'd order a Tesla Semi and just get traditional loads or get regional loads for my company. After how impressed I am with my Y, I'm trusting Tesla's layout and visibility in their Semi. Yeah, I have to imagine, excuse me. I have to imagine part of the reason it has been so delayed from 2019. I know they've said, like, well, we needed to put batteries in as many Model Ys as we could, and then, supply chain things over the last couple of years, but excuse me. But I think part of the delay has been testing it and getting feedback, and every now and again, every couple months, you'd see one or the other of the Tesla semis, being spotted somewhere in California going over mountains with big, stone blocks on a trailer and things like that. So I have to imagine part of the delay has been trying to get it right. And just throwing all sorts of different scenarios at it to dial that stuff in. So hopefully drivers love it, because that's, truck drivers spend a ton of time in those vehicles. That reminds me, as people have been posting about this event coming up on Friday, or tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday. Thanksgiving really threw me off. But as people were posting about that, I saw a lot of people talking about, well, yeah, let's see this thing, idle for 8 hours running, with the heat on. How's that battery going to handle that? I was thinking, well, it'll be great, because these things definitely have heat pumps in them. And, that massive battery, it's going to sip electrons, if you're sleeping in it. And then, so, it's not like you're burning diesel all night to keep your, air on or whatever when you're not going anywhere. So I think that's another thing that's really going to surprise people. Let's see. Let's see. Larry. Hi, Larry. Good evening. I'm taking my first road trip in my Model 3 long range on Friday from Plymouth, Minnesota to Kearney, Missouri. I expect the 430-mile trip to take about the same amount of time as my ice cars. Yeah, depending on how long you usually stop. The Dow's stop is a little slow because it's still version 2. And actually, so is Albert Lee. I'm trying to think if there's a... You might have to make a quick pit stop in Dow's, and then you might be able to do version 3 superchargers from there. Your big charge will be in Dow's during lunch, so no extra time. Yeah, that's a pretty comfortable place to stop. A few hours. It's about an hour into Iowa, and it's not the perfect stop, but it's fine. It's comfortable, and you can get some food and stuff there. So, yeah, that should be a good plan. And like I said, you should have version 3s after that. So if you have to stop, it shouldn't be too bad. Steve says, how often do you take the reins and plan your own charging versus trusting the Tesla nav? When I did the charging test, I was specifically like going between Tesla and a better route planner to try to maximize time on that. But for most trips, if I plan it, I only plan it for YouTube or to find, find a hotel with destination charging or something somewhere where I want to stop. Last spring when we went to Florida, I planned all that trip out for a video, and then the day of the trip, I got in the car and said, navigate to Cocoa Beach, Florida. Or, maybe I went to, that may have been to our first hotel. But basically, I just let Tesla figure it out as I went. And then I may have referenced the plan once or twice just for, again, the sake of comparing it for a video. But if I'm just going somewhere, I just let Tesla figure it all out. If I'm going somewhere off the supercharger network, then I will do a little planning. But most places are within the supercharger network that I frequently go. Excuse me. I had a terrible cold and fever last week. And it was the kind of fever that, like, for about 3 days, I was kind of on another planet a little bit. Where, like, I was able to get up, get my daughter dressed and on the school bus, and then laid out on the couch until she got home, just completely spaced out. So, still have the cough part of that, but everything else is fine. Let's see. Glenn says, Larry, Friday is the day to go. Saturday will be cold. Good choice. Yeah. I've never fully used Tesla routing. It's just weird sometimes. I prefer to pull in the next supercharger, or plug in put in the next supercharger manually during stops. Yeah, that's a good way to do it too if you know you want to stop at specific places. John says, I took a summer trip from Eau Claire to Nashville this year, took 5 charge stops, varying between 15 and 40 minutes each, adding an extra 90 minutes versus gas. but autopilot made me arrive way less tired. Yeah, that's a big help. Same here. Drove 12 hours from Alabama to Texas twice in a month. Each time my neck hurt from the way I was sitting, but I wasn't tired in the slightest. Yeah. Hey, Brandon, how's it going? Welcome. Good to see you. Do you still have the beard and mustache? Are you keeping that on? I guess we aren't out of November yet. Jason says, keep in mind you'll lose some range in the colder weather. Yeah. Yeah, and in nice cars, more than 7 hours of driving is exhausting. Yeah, I've done some painful drives in nice cars, and yeah, you get out and you're just beside yourself. Is the new Albert Lee V3? No, it is not. I think it was the last version 2 they put in, which is really disappointing because it's such a good location. But Tesla updated their Find Us map, and Owatonna is on there, so that'll be a good stop. Definitely that one will be V3 at least. And it's coming, I don't think, till Q2 or Q3 of next year. So if it's Q2, I'm guessing it's going to be like June. So, but it's coming, and more on 35 is good. Glenn says new. Oh yeah, V2 and Albert Lee. The pedestals are still labeled AB. I don't think they're going to upgrade Albert Lee, but Owatonna should help. But again, that's mid next year. Oh, thanks about the studio setup, Brandon. Yeah, working on it. It's a work in progress. This is the interesting setup. When I go to my desk, it'll be really pretty flat and Zoom meeting looking, but I can show you guys more stuff there than I can here. What time is the semi event tomorrow? I don't know. I'm sure it'll be actually I don't know if anybody's seen the invite on Twitter. I've seen people posting it, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the time has been on there, but I'm sure everybody will share it on social media that it's happening. Good. Okay. John just bought a new flashlight. And takes a 26650 battery. Never heard of that. I don't know. I'm not a battery guru, so I don't know if that's a usual size or not. Classical says, I've been in the same position with being sick and spending all my energy getting my daughter ready for school, then right back to bed for the rest of the day. Yeah, it was. I generally don't get sick, but when it seems like every couple of years I get one of those that's just like almost a week long of misery, and then I'm back fine. Aaron says, I heard of the V4 they were planning for Arizona. Any idea how many V4 are actually in the wild yet? I don't think any are in the wild yet. I think some are permitted, and so I would guess they'll go in next year, and then we'll find out what V4 really is. If it's faster, if it's got CCS connectors on it, if it's or if there's adapters available at the site. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, especially with them trying to push the Tesla as standard thing now, which again was, like 5 years too late. Why did you do that now? Uh, so we'll see how that all plays out. I also have a very similar studio in the basement. Oddly. Wait a minute. Do you have like red on that side of you? We could do like a versus battle, studio versus battle. Let's see. AZ says, I'm burning my diesel generator now to heat the truck, plus running my trailer refrigerator unit to keep the Thermo King. To keep that. Thermo King makes a hybrid refrigerator trailer that sips diesel. Huh. I wonder how they would do that. That's great that they found a way to make it more efficient. So when, I guess this is something I never really thought about with trucks, AZ, is you're burning a diesel generator. So when the trucks are idling in like the truck stops, they're not running the full engine. They're running a generator that's separate. Does that run off the main fuel, or is there a separate tank for that? I wonder how that works. But I guess it would make sense to try to use, if you're just heating the cabin, obviously the trailer's got its own unit if you've got a refrigerated trailer. But I just assumed people were just running their full engines the whole time. But that probably isn't an efficient way to do that. So interesting. Brandon, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. Get to bed. It'd be nice to do an in-person something again. I have an idea for that. John, thank you for the super chat of the little fox doing little fox things. Appreciate that. I don't know if that's a super chat or a super sticker, whatever it is, but thank you. Larry says he took his Model 3 out on the snowy neighborhood streets today and handled better on the stock all seasons than his RX 450H did. Very pleased. I did put it in chill mode. That's a good idea. I actually almost got stuck in the Model Y. There was a section coming out of Cub onto Highway 42, which is a fairly busy road, not too high speeds, 45, 50 mile an hour speeds. And they had not plowed out the turn lane out of that exit yet. And so there was probably 6 inches of pretty thick churned up snow. But other cars had driven through it or other trucks. So I'm like, I'll just go through. And I was going through it just fine, but then I had to stop because of the traffic on the highway. And of course, then it was like, okay, slow going. I'm kind of moving. Oh, there's another car. I got to stop. And then somebody came up behind me. And so it's not like, oh, now I'm just going to back out. I was able to put it in reverse, get back a few feet, straighten out the wheel, and get through it eventually. But by the time I was doing that, the guy in the car behind me was getting out to see if he could give me a push. So luckily, it wasn't a problem. I got out. He got out behind me. But just kind of a funny, like, I think the Model Y handles great in snow. I don't have snow tires on it, and I know I should, but generally, if all the roads are like that, I'm not going out, unless it would be an emergency. So, but it was kind of interesting. I was like, oh man, am I going to be the EV that can't make it through? But the weight of the car, the clearance of the Model Y is pretty good too, so it wasn't a big issue. But I did have a couple minutes of this might be about to be getting embarrassing here. John, thank you for the other chat. The I don't know what these are all called, but thank you very much. You don't have to do that, but I do appreciate it. No, it's not a common battery. Never heard of it before. Yeah, I wonder if things in the lithium ion world are just getting like, hey, this is the size we need. Who will make it? Because our product needs it this size, and maybe they do like a one-off for their products or something. I'm not sure. That's interesting. I know I think Rivian uses 2170s, and that's what's in their flashlight is one of their 2170s. Todd did the research. Thank you, Todd. Semi-truck event time is 8 p.m. Or 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 10 p.m. for us Midwesterners. Yeah, 10 p.m. Brian takes super chats for his new camera. He doesn't know how he's getting. Yeah. Glenn has still never used chill mode. Excellent. Thank you for your super chat thing too, Glenn. Appreciate that. Still never used chill mode. That's I would keep up with that then if you've never used it. I used to use it in the S a lot because it helped me save a little range. Speaking of which, I want to talk about that energy graph here in a second. Aaron says, did you guys get a ton of snow? We didn't get any north of Alex. We got about 8.5 inches. I think we got hit with the bulk of it here in Burnsville. So it was that was half of my yesterday was shoveling the driveway. And, the good heavy stuff after the plow came through, but that's all right. I needed a workout anyway. John says, "Are you driving with winter tires?" No, I am not. I should be, but I'm not. John says, "At least I didn't get a flat tire again." Yeah, maybe that would have got me to switch. Yeah. AZ says with his semi, he's got a generator, AQU auxiliary power unit that sips diesel, handles all climate control, and powers the fridge and micro. Costs about $12K. Runs off the truck tanks. Okay. But lots of trucks just idle. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that, but it makes total sense. I bet, yeah, it does. Comparatively, it's got to just sip diesel, so that's good. Chill mode in the Missouri snowpocalypse in 2020 and 2021. Yeah, that's a good use for chill mode there. And Jason says the energy graph is back for the Refresh S. All right, fantastic. Like the new format of the energy graph. Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to hear that. And on that note, let's go over and take a look at it, shall we? I still don't have theme music for this awkward part where I move, but I'll be right back. Hello? Audio? Yes? All right. And you can see my painting supply mess here over this shoulder here. If I get really beefy, maybe you can't see it. But I wanted to share my second screen here. And I was watching the Tesla Semi event earlier. And I was going to bring that up during this, but there's really not too much to it. Again, I said they went through it pretty fast because Franz was in the back. But excuse me. But they kind of showed off the 0 to 60 time. How it can do that. 500 miles of range. Oh, where am I here? That was strange. 500 miles of range. And 80% of routes are less than 250 miles. So, it'll be interesting to see if this is a pretty short presentation, and part of it is the Roadster reveal. So if you haven't seen this or haven't seen it since 2017, I found it really interesting to rewatch, knowing that tomorrow we might see the same thing or hopefully even better specs. But I just found it kind of interesting, the kind of things they were talking about. And that's on Tesla's YouTube page. The energy graph is this sweet baby right here. And this is a trip I just took up to my in-laws. I can bring it more. I'm moving the wrong screen. So the energy graph I always found really pretty helpful. Just kind of showing how your drive is matching up with, what Tesla's predicting. And you would see this variance, but you wouldn't know why. And so now they've updated this. And I like to drive relatively quickly, especially, through the metro area. We live south of the Twin Cities. My in-laws live north of the Twin Cities. So this was a trip up to their house. And some of the speed limits are 55, but everybody kind of drives 70. And I'm kind of usually in that camp of like, let's just get through this. And, if there's a clear lane, let's take it. Let's, get out of people's way. So this actually made me slow down a little bit. In your range tips section here, if you can see my cursor, hopefully you can, saying, stay below 70 miles an hour to, stay on the plan, basically. And then we hit some traffic. And then, I started kind of gamifying it a little bit and like, well, let's see how well we can do and how much we can get up there with. And we had it was a cool day, but very sunny. And so to heat the cabin was using mostly just, the sun heat. And, once it was warmed up, it didn't need much. So that's where I got some decent range back. But, I was able to kind of really feather my driving to try to keep this, right where I wanted. So, lost a tiny bit to elevation. There wasn't a big difference, but, it's just so handy. And it's the first thing that, other than, feeling like I might run out of juice, has made me want to slow down a little bit and see if I can beat this. So it did take it from something I found useful to something that feels like a little more of a game. So I think it's a great addition to give us this extra information here. Um, I see Todd added some music in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. Uh, I see a pile of hats over there. Yeah, there's probably a pile of hats. There's probably a pile of all sorts of stuff over there. My office is a mess, other than what you guys can see, and even some of that's a mess. Uh, John says I didn't have winter tires for my the first winter, but then I bought Continental Viking Contact 7 tires for second winter season. Huge difference in traction, was worth it. Yeah, I I definitely want to get winter tires at some point. It's just uh, it's never winter has never come at a good time. Last year, my wife decided that she was going to do uh, contract work for her career, um, which was completely fine. But last winter we were kind of like, all right, let's batten down the hatches just in case. We have big swings of time between different contracts, and all this year it was fine. And then as we're coming into spring, we're like, or coming into winter here, she uh, one contract finished, and she's waiting for the next one. So it's like, okay, do we what are the things we don't need to spend money on? And uh, if we drive smart and don't go out into uh, unplowed places like I did, or don't go out on days like yesterday, if we play it a little smart, uh, we're trying to save money for this year. So that's neither here nor there. You guys don't care about that, but there's a lot of little things I'd like to do, but it's just not high enough priority to take the plunge. But I would like to at some point have decent winter tires on the car. The tires right now I have they say sport, but they're not sport. But they're serviceable, and if you know what your stopping distance is going to be in different situations, I've lived here all my life. I have a pretty good barometer of, knock on wood, I have a pretty good barometer of when to stop and how much space to leave between vehicles and things like that. So yeah, it's on the list. Steve says, "Love this feature before. This looks even better." Yeah, it's the lines aren't as bold, so you have to kind of squint at it a little bit when you're driving, but it's not bad. Like a mix of the original and the "Where Did My Energy Go" type screens that are in the Bolt and Mach-E. Yeah, I forgot the Mach-E had that. I know the Bolt does, and so that's kind of always been a handful of the Bolt features. There's each car has like one thing you'd like to put into like the Uber car that has like this kind of thing from the Bolt, and the charging of the Ioniq 5 and the speed of the Plaid, and all these different features that, like, if you could just mash them into one vehicle, then everybody could just get that. But of course that's not how things work. But I just wanted to share that if you guys haven't seen that. A handful of people have done videos on it that I thought were good, but I didn't like. There's not too much to show you other than it does the similar thing, but you can kind of gamify it. So I think it's cool. And then, speaking of chargers, I made a little featurette for you. which while I'm here, I may as well show that. Um, in the last couple months, we've had 3 superchargers open up. I'll just go back to here so you can see my hat collection. Um, in the last couple months, we've had a few new superchargers in Monticello, North Branch, and Maple Grove. And so Joan and I took a couple days to go up and check those out. So I just wanted to share a quick peek at those, and I'll see you on the other side. Joan and I have spent a couple days this month just going around and checking out some of the new superchargers. Here's Maple Grove with its 12-stall V3 station, and it's located in a Target parking lot with one pull-in spot, but this is also right in one of the main areas of coming into Target. As we look down this road here, that's where a lot of traffic will come in and pass the stations. So although it wasn't busy right now, I can see that being an issue with regular drivers trying to get by, people trying to work into the pull-on spot with a trailer, and causing some traffic problems. So hopefully that doesn't end up being the case, but it's a concern and something to watch out for. On another cold day, we took a trip up to North Branch. Hello and welcome to the North Branch, Minnesota Supercharger. We are checking this out, but it is only 19 degrees outside and pretty windy, so this is coming to you from inside. We were just here for about 8 minutes to plug in and, stop in and use the restroom quick, and got to 54% from 32. So not bad, but we weren't fully preconditioned. I only preconditioned the last 15 miles, but good experience. This is right outside the door of the Holiday, the side door. So really convenient. McDonald's, Subway, Caribou right across the street, and some other things nearby. So good spot right off the highway, and we're going to go check out another one. Okay, we're at the Monticello Supercharger after fighting the wind and preconditioning. We're at 10%. We're going to plug in. Nice V3 station in a Cub Foods parking lot. Pretty close right off the highway, so nice and easy. One handy thing at this location is there's a side door to the pharmacy. So on a day like this, when it's 18 degrees and windy, you can get in and out of Cub pretty easily without a long walk. Just into Cub for a couple minutes, then back up, already up to 51%. Still cruising at 107 kilowatts. So pretty good, nice version 3 spot. There's a Perkins, KFC, and Holiday right behind us. So pretty nice stop. Actually, the Perkins is across a busy road. The Pancho Villa Mexican restaurant is next door, along with KFC, Holiday, with a Caribou around the corner. We unplugged and headed home with plenty to spare. Hi, I'm way over here now. I forgot I had to switch both of them over. But yeah, so 3 new chargers, good locations, but it's getting cold here. So, yeah, Jason says the new graph looks better. Or the graph looks a little better on the refresh SNX. Can't wait for the Egan Supercharger. Yeah, that's going to be great when it comes online. Larry says, I love being able to use the app to preheat the interior in the garage in about 5 minutes. Yeah, before we need to leave. Yeah, I've been getting back in the habit. I kind of forgot in the first couple cold snaps we had. I'd just go out into the dead cold garage. Like, why am I doing this? But lately I've been remembering to precondition before I go out there. So that's, a nice, makes things a little nicer. John asks, what kind of home charger do I use? I have just a NEMA 1450 plug I had installed in the garage. When we got our first Tesla, I wasn't sure, I was so new to the whole EV thing. I was like, well, I don't know if our next car is going to be a Tesla or, a Leaf or, who knows what. Um, and so I thought, well, let's just put the plug in the garage rather than getting the wall connector. And so I used the mobile connector that came with the car for that, and then now I've been using that with the. I used that with the S, and then when we traded that in for the Y, then I've just been using the new one for the Y. So it's worked out so far. Worked out pretty well. I think if we might do something more robust if we get a second EV. We'll have to look at that when the Prius dies, or if the Prius ever dies. I keep saying that like, yeah, this year it might happen, and then it's just fine for another year. Um, but definitely, when the Prius dies, we'll go to another EV, and if that's like an old Leaf or something, then we'd probably just 110 charge that and stay with the same plan we have with the Nemo 1450 for the Y. If it's more modern EV and we find that we both need to be driving more, then we would probably get something that can charge both cars, or alternate the nights we charge or whatever. But that's a down the road kind of deal. But so far we haven't had any issues with the mobile connector. Aaron, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Get some transmission music. Yeah. I will. I'll work on that. That's one of those things I think of as I'm setting up the cameras. Like, I made the that little supercharger thing this afternoon. I'm like, oh, it'll be good to have a little feature thing, and then as I'm setting up, I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to do that transition thing, and never got around to it. But now I have no excuse. I can buy the music and everything. Maybe I'll get one of those like, let's go out to the lobby kind of animations. John says, remember you can crack your windows, turn your Tesla on 80%, and heat up your garage. Yeah, I could do that. Actually, I did. I guess I used a space heater. I was going to say a year or so ago, I did do a project out in the garage, and it was so bitterly cold, but I took a space heater out. I didn't use the car, but I did think about it. John says, yeah, preheat the garage for your woodworking nights, yeah. Do I have 6-gauge wire coming to my 220 outlet in the garage? That is a good question for the electrician who put it in. I don't know, but he seemed competent. I have had no issues with anything getting hot or not working properly, so I have no. He was recommended by my electric company too, so I feel like they would probably, if they can vouch for his work, then they know more about it than I do. But I'm not terribly worried about it. John has done it before, crack the windows, turn on the heat up, and warm the garage up. Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, I guess it is just a space heater, and it's using, the new ones are using heat pumps, so maybe it'd be faster and more efficient. I don't know. I try to avoid. It always ends up happening, but I try to avoid doing big projects in the garage over the winter because I do not enjoy being cold. It is about February. I'm ready to move to Florida every year. 6-gauge wire is good for 50 amps. Then that's probably what they used. I don't know. I could call him and see if he remembers 4 years ago. Hey, do you remember that that one plug you put in my house 4 years ago? Um, John says he installed a 1450 NEMA on a 50 amp breaker, used 6 gauge wire, doesn't draw more than 40 amps from it to keep the draw to 80% of rated amps. Yeah. Yeah, and I actually turn a lot of times if I'm just charging at home, I drive around a little bit and I might get down to like 50% or something through the day. My daily charge limit is 80%, so I'll set it to 24 amps or something like that, just to spread that load out a little longer, for at a lower rate. Um, Another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is the FSD rollout that's now gone to. I think I did see today somebody saying that it was only to like 50% of the people who have um, purchased it, but I don't know. I've heard elsewhere that everybody who purchased it got it, regardless of safety score, and that's what I heard initially. So I would guess that's still true. Um, and so that happened the day before or 2 days before Thanksgiving. Again, when that update came through, usually I'm like, hey, it came out in the middle of the night. I'm going to go drive around town on the new beta build. And, I got that notification on my phone. I'm like, yeah, update, whatever, just go away. And so didn't even get in the car for another 2 days, I don't think. Um, and had a not super initial drive, but I've had some good drives since then. Um, so it'll be interesting. I haven't had a ton of time. Well, I guess when I did that energy graph trip, that was all on beta, and I went from Burnsville to Circle Pines, around city streets there, and then back all the way back both times. I don't think there were any interventions, so it's happening enough now that I don't find it that remarkable. Unless it goes through something really challenging, then I'll like kind of make a mental note of it. But it's still not perfect. It still does dumb things. The transition between um, city streets and then getting on the highway, um, like that handoff between systems, I feel is still really ugly. Um, and maybe it's just I'm very particular about how I like to do that, but um, that's one of those safety critical areas that I'm very quick to take over if I feel it's not doing what I would do. So uh, the the good news is everybody that bought it has it. The bad news is everybody that buys it has it, or rent or subscribes to it has it. And so I know uh, Alyssa from Kyle and Alyssa, out of spec. Um, she was had an experience where she was in a Uber or something, and the guy was not handling it well, but felt very confident in how like yeah, I can do everything. Meanwhile, he's not paying attention or not handling it right. And unfortunately, those kind of things are going to happen. But I think most people, read the notice, see the, you're on a strike system. You have to be responsible with this stuff, and I think most people really are. Um, so overall, I think it's going to be a good thing. The the big news that seems to have come out of it, and John and I have talked a little bit about this offline, but that the report button is no longer on the screen. And my thinking is, they've got so much data coming in and had so much data coming in already with the existing testers that now if everybody reports every little thing, there's just no way they have enough bandwidth to record all that. So I think at this point, obviously take over, disengage, hit the brakes, do whatever you need to keep it safe, keep yourself safe, and just assume they're getting what they need. So it would still be nice. I still do reach for it. If something bad happens, I'm like, I really want them to know, but I did hit the brake or took over or whatever, and I guess we just have to assume they are taking that stuff, but they're taking it in through such a fire hose now that it's probably not useful to for everybody to be doing that flagging. For those of you who are on the beta program, I'd love to know your thoughts on the new version, the 69.3.1. I think that's which one we're on. Patiently awaiting version 11, which will hopefully fix that thing that I was complaining about the handoff between the autopilot system and the FSD system. That's if I'm doing that, I almost always have to disengage. Highway to highway, like if it's just doing like a cloverleaf or something, that's generally fine. But it's getting off the side streets onto an on-ramp or getting off an off-ramp and slowing if there's no stop sign or signal or anything, and it just has to merge with the slower traffic, I end up taking over, or hitting the accelerator or whatever in those situations. Let's see, we got. John says we charge both the Chevy Volt and a Model Y using the ChargePoint charger. I think other John, that's the one you have in your garage too. I might be wrong on that. Larry says I was curious as to whether charging at 24 or 32 amps is better for the battery than 40 amps, or if it doesn't make any difference at those current levels. It probably doesn't matter to the battery that much. I mean, maybe, on one hand, you're not putting as much heat into it, but on winter nights like this, that little bit of heat difference, I don't know that it would make that big of a deal, especially with the battery management system in there. I just now you've got me asking myself, why do I turn it down to 24? Partially is the pull from the house, and I guess it might be a little bit of battery health concern, but compared to like DC fast charging, pulling 250 kilowatts compared to 32 amp AC home charging is probably pretty insignificant. I guess I just do it to spread out the grid load, maybe, is my thinking, is like just charge longer at a lower rate. Might be easier on everything. But as is evidenced by everything, I'm not a scientist. John says it won't matter from the car's perspective since AC goes through a DC converter in the car. Good point. Frequently direct current fast charging is what strains the battery. Yeah, that makes more sense. The amp limit setting is more to accommodate smaller circuits to avoid overloading. So that's a better answer than I have. Todd says we have a 100 amp service and charge at 25 all the time. Yeah, I mean, unless you're doing pretty full charges overnight, you've got plenty of time to charge at a lower amperage. Tony, hey, how's it going? Happy winter. Model 3 is working good. Tesla mobile service. Rotated the titers this summer. That was about it. That's good. I hope you've got enough traction for how you drive in the winter. Yeah, that's great. I totally lost my place right now. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. If you saw anything in the, if anyone was watching the Neuralink thing before this came on, I didn't see anything too new. But we could talk about that. It seems like on that front they're just, going, smaller, more efficient, upgrading their processes, and hope to do human trials and sometime next year. So that'll be interesting. Steve says we'd reduce the current at our Thanksgiving hotel destination charge to avoid hitting full early and sitting at 100% too long. Yeah, that's a good strategy. I've done that. I'm trying to think where that was. I've done that on a couple destination chargers, or last time I was in northern Montana. I don't think anybody would have cared. There's a hotel I've stayed at. I think it's a Comfort Inn in Shelby, Montana, and right outside the hotel, they've got a bunch of RV spots. And they'll let you charge there. A couple of years ago when I was there, they let me charge for free. This time they charged me like $10 a night, which I don't care. But even though were hardly any RVs there, the gal at the desk was a little, no, we're going to do this by the book, and unplug the minute you're done charging and move it and all this stuff. And so I thought, well, I had, the last time I had my daughter with me, I was like, I'm not going to get up at 4 a.m, come up here, unplug, move the car. I mean, it would have been fine, but I'm like, that's too inconvenient. There's plenty of other spots. So I did the same thing. I just cranked down the amps till it said, you'll be done in the morning when you want to leave. And that worked out really well. Aaron asks, any new family road trips planned? No, we're talking about maybe something in the spring. It's kind of up in the air. It might be a Florida, it might be a California kind of thing, and we're again kind of trying to figure out the what the job situation is going to be at that point anyway. But we're kind of looking at do we do something desert like My wife really likes going to Joshua Tree. She's been there a handful of times. And so one thought is, again, my daughter and I would probably road trip out there, and I might stop by the Grand Canyon, which is my favorite spot. Probably my favorite national park. And so that would be kind of cool. Like a late February, March kind of thing. Or do we go down to Florida again and do the beach and everything, which would be fun too. But I love the beach vacations, but I'm kind of ready for some more mountains and things. So it's still up in the air. We're kind of just we're trying to get through the end of this year and then kind of see how things shake out. But we're talking about it. I have a ton of road trips I'd love to do. I'd love to go out east. I'd love to get back to Montana and check up on the Well Done Foundation there, or go down to Louisiana where they just plugged a well, I think just this week, and kind of see how the operation is down there. I think that would be super cool. But that's kind of like, if I can get away by myself, I would do that, because to shoot in those environments, I can't really have my daughter with me to do it safely. So we'll see. There's a lot of possibilities on the table. I'd also like to. I've been to most of the contiguous states, but I haven't been up to the Northeast yet. Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. So I'd kind of like to do something up that way too, but that would probably be more of a summer family trip. If things slide to the summer, we might do something there. So, like I said, a lot on the table, a lot I'd like to do. Every time my daughter has a couple days off school, I'm like, where can we drive? Where can we drive? So I don't know. If anybody's got any good suggestions or new directions we should travel, let me know. Classical says, do you have the Tesla tire repair sealant? Reading the forums makes me doubt my 18 years of driving and flat tires and reconsider my entire game plan. I had never had flat tires before in my life, other than like a slow leak you get in your garage and you find it at home. Until our mountain road trip in 2020. Was it 2020 or 2021? But we went out to Montana through North Dakota and blew a tire in North Dakota. Got the set of tires I have on it now, on the Model Y now. And then drove into Montana, blew a tire there, out in the boondocks, no cell service, and we were able to plug both of those to drive to civilization again, and then had that tire patched in Montana, and it's held just fine since then. So since then, I've kept a plug kit and a compressor in the car. I think part of the problem on that, and probably a lot of reason it gets discussed on the Tesla forums, is because a lot of people will say you get better range if you kind of overinflate your tires, which was definitely the problem we had in North Dakota. I really pumped them up because I'm like, we got to get big range on these days, big day. And then you go on, gravel roads and things, and your tires are like, full like they just ate a Thanksgiving dinner, and bang, popped. So I would say don't overinflate your tires, and yeah, keep some. I just went to I think like a Napa or something, and got a little plug kit. EV Dave's got a good video on a tire he had to plug in Wyoming a few months ago. So you can check that out on his channel, kind of how to do it if you don't know. And it's, if you have a compressor in the car, then that's, pretty easy to manage too. It's not fun, but I wouldn't overly stress about it. But obviously, where you drive and what kind of road hazards and things you're likely to encounter. Dusty, I'm assuming that's you. Thank you for the super chart, super chat. Let's go to the arcade. Definitely, we got to get the Commodore 64 dusted off. Let's see. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Now we've got $2 in quarters we can spend at the arcade. Let's see. Catch up here. So if you want to get the repair kit, you can do that. I think Tesla's repair kit might be a little more expensive than just something you can pick up at Napa and pick up a relatively inexpensive compressor to just keep in the back trunk area, and that should be all you need. Any big blowout, you're either going to have a spare with you or get a tow. So what you can do, if you have a separate set of snow tires and summer tires, that is something some people do, is they'll throw, one of their off-season tires in the trunk as a, just safety valve if you've got the space and you're going on a trip. I don't know that I'd really... I hate to give the advice of, you're not going to need it, and then somebody gets in a bad situation, but really I don't think, for the most part, you're going to need a full spare. Aaron says, curious about the amount of time each of you think is too long to sit at 100%. Obviously, you want to keep it to a minimum, but when does it start to get too long? John says, I'm an 80% charge daily guy. I'll set to 100% overnight for morning, long drive departure. I think the most I've kept the car at 100% is 4 or 5 hours in 2.5 years of owning it. I know there was one day I forgot to take it off 100% from a road trip and charged it up, and it sat overnight and in the middle of the next day before I caught it. And then I drove around the neighborhood a little bit to knock it down, but it didn't kill my battery, but I'm sure it wasn't super happy either. So it won't kill your car to leave it there for a day, but don't get in the habit of it. 4 to 5 hours, I would say, is generally the max. I would knowingly let it, and even that I would try to avoid. Larry says, after 50 years of ice road trips, with my road trip on Friday, can't stop feeling like I should fill the car with gas tomorrow. Yeah, that's the thing. Just remember to plug it in, because if you're packing the car and doing a lot of stuff, working around it and everything, check the tires are inflated and all that stuff. But just remember, double check the app from your bed before you go to sleep. Make sure it is plugged in, because I have done that before, and then it's like, oh, dang it, the first stop is a supercharger now. Or, I'm plugging it in and, trying to get up as far as I can before I leave the house, and then, make an extra supercharger stop. So, John says, have you ever heard if Superior, Wisconsin is getting a supercharger? I did not hear that, but it's possible. John thinks I should take a trip to Alaska in the Model Y, see how that heat pump works. I have no desire to be, aside from seeing the wildlife, the landscapes, and the Aurora Borealis, I have no desire to go to Wisconsin, especially in the winter. Yeah, Flat Tire King. Steve says head his way. We'll get your Y one of those cheesy climbed at Mount Washington stickers. Oh, fantastic. I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love to get out to the Boston area. That would be fun. Yeah, it's a matter of can we work the timing out, and that's a trip I would want to do in the summer, so we can walk around cities and stuff without being cold and all that. I'm not are you guys bumper sticker people? I've never been a bumper sticker person, but like I've occasionally bought some, and then they just sit in my office here like, well, I have that now. Dustin drives LeSabre. Yep, got to make that video. Is the LeSabre still alive? I'm not sure. So do you know who Hannah Montana is? I don't get the joke there, but I do know who Hannah Montana is. Hey. Roland's in the house. Chemist American Lifestyle. Creator of, if I can get the right side, the little Brian Ruby Drives Electric hat. So if you need a custom hat sewn for Christmas, Roland can probably do it for you. Hey. I hope all things are good in northern North Dakota, and it's not too abysmally cold up there. John says he put bumper stickers on beater cars, but not the Tesla. Yeah, I thought about doing like a vinyl or something, with my like YouTube logo on the car. And then I was kind of like, well, do I really want to draw attention to, like, if we do other road trips where, we're sleeping overnight in the car at a supercharger or, in a parking lot, do I really want to draw attention, like, I don't know. Not that anyone would know what it is, but still, just a weird thought. But Kwame's still awake. Hi to her too. I've been seeing some of her adventures and play dates and stuff. That's been pretty cute. John says we need a special hat that says Brian fixes flat tires. Yeah, that'll be my new channel. I'll start a new channel that does just tire fixes. But really, both of those, I should say, on that road trip, which is a good series of videos if you want to check it out. Lots of good mountain scenery and me swearing at the tires. It's like the mountain or Model Y mountain adventure playlist on my channel. But my brother actually did the plugging of the tires and all that, so I was on the phone and assisting. But he's he is a hardcore uh, ice car road tripper, and he's done a few EV road trips with me too. But he just doesn't own one of his own yet. Um, but he has done the trip out to from Minnesota to Phoenix to Oregon to California many times. So he has put on tons of road trip miles. So when the tire popped, he's like, by the time I got out of the car, he had half the gear out and was already working on it. So nice to have him on that trip. That was really super helpful. Um, let's see. How do you wash the bottom of your car in winter? I use Optimum, no rinse in my garage on the paint. Um, I I actually don't really. Most of the time when I wash the car, I just take it to the holiday. It's got a touchless thing that goes around. No brushes or anything, but I do have paint protection film on the car. Um, so 90% of the time when I get the car washed, it's just that, and it's not as good. It's not as eco-friendly, but um, it's fast, and so that ends up being my go-to. And then I do have like a magic wash kind of spray bottle thing that if I need it to look good for a show or an event or something, then I will go around and do like another like after wash, to really get it to shine and look good. But I don't really worry about the bottom of the car and stuff in winter. Um, yeah, the it's generally the holiday car wash works and it's touchless, and like I said, if I need to do like a fine tooth comb cleaning for something, I will. But most of the time, I don't worry about it. And the holiday thing has like a jet that sprays up and you drive over it, and that's worked fine for me. Um, uh, yeah, John says brushless car wash that sprays underneath the vehicle. Oh, Fleet Farm has that apparently. Okay. Um, I just realized it's 11:08 already, and wanted to talk a little bit about next month. Last December is when the channel hit 1,000 subscribers, and so I wanted to do kind of a hey, let's get everybody together, all the regulars and everything. Tune in and let's do a Zoom call together, and then I would publish that as the live show then the next day. And so I thought that worked pretty well. We had a handful of people on, and we just kind of talked EVs, talked, where we think next year's going. Next year we should see semis on the road. We should see, maybe Cybertrucks on the road. Uh, we should see more and more models of other EVs hitting the road. So uh, I think it would be a lot of fun to do that again. Do a Zoom meeting with, kind of whoever wants to join. And I'll figure out how to share a link. But we'll probably do that on the 28th, the evening of the 28th, and maybe start a little bit earlier so it's easier for people in other time zones to join in. Um, and then it's not just me talking the whole time, and more people can kind of chime in. And maybe we'll, I don't know, play some games, sing some carols. So I don't know, but kind of look at this year, look at next year, all the things coming, and just kind of have a good kind of holiday hangout. So that will probably be on the 28th, which I think is the last Wednesday in December. And I will, like I said, I'll find a way to share that out either on the community tab. On the community tab, I will tell you how to get a hold of the link, but I don't think I'll post the link in the community tab because I don't want it to be a spam fest. So I'm looking forward to that. It's amazing when I look back at, like I said, December. Late December, I hit 100,000 or 1,000 subscribers, and now I'm at like almost 1,600. So like, just a ton of growth over the year, and I really appreciate everyone tuning in and watching, and even hanging out on these big, long, rambly things. But I do appreciate it, and want to do something where we can all hang out together, and more, like I said, more people can talk than just me. So yeah, definitely want to get more people involved. If Steve is here, if John is here, Roland is here, other YouTubers, Jim the Iowa Tesla guy, if he joins sometimes, maybe EV Dave too. So if you have questions for more competent YouTubers, you can ask the questions of them as well. So we'll see who can join. I'll get that set up and send something out so people know how to find it. But I think with that, I'm going to wrap up for the evening. And like I said, I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday season coming up. I guess we'll be pretty much past everything by the 28th, but that's all right. Then the pressure's off. We can just hang out, talk EVs, maybe have a favorite beverage of choice, and hang out. So one other thing I was going to mention, I don't know, there's not a ton of Minnesota folks on here right now, but I guess if you guys could help me gauge if this is even a decent concept. I was thinking of setting up an event in the Minnesota Tesla Owners Group of doing like a caroling Saturday. Well, I know that's super cheesy, but I'm trying to think of, like how can we, be out in the community and just do some fun stuff, hang out. And what I'm thinking is setting up a program of, we'll be at this supercharger at this time, this supercharger at this time. Just, come up with a route of kind of mostly metro area superchargers. And just, whoever wants to meet at that time, we'll do that. We'll maybe do, like if it's at a shopping center or something, or even if it's just us around, do like 3 like old school caroling songs, maybe with boombox mode, and just kind of have fun, have apple cider and donuts and that kind of thing. If you guys think that would be a fun idea, let me know. I don't have all everything ironed out on that yet, but I'm thinking like December 10th or something like that. I think that's a Saturday. So if it sounds like fun, or even if it's just a hangout and we don't do the caroling part, I would understand if people are a little weirded out by that. But, just as my video that's coming out tomorrow is another look at the Bloomington Supercharger before a Vikings game, and showing the difference in usage from that Monday during the day test and the difference between a Sunday game day, pregame time. And as I was sitting out, basically stalking a supercharger for hours, that's kind of when the idea came to me. Is like, there's going to be a lot of people here. It's a shopping area. It might be fun to see a bunch of Tesla owners having fun, was the thought. And I thought, caroling's good and cheesy. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, and that's usually a good mix. So, anyway, I'd love to hear any thoughts or comments on that. Bye, Roland. Thanks for stopping in. John says we could put all the cars in holiday light show mode. Yeah. It'd be a hot mess, but fun. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. Yeah, do the light show. Yeah, maybe that's how we do it instead of making people sing. But anyway, it's a thought. If you're in the Minnesota group, I'll probably put together an event for that in the next couple days once I kind of plan out a route. But it definitely would, especially the ones later in the day when it's a little darker, which is like 4 now, to do the light shows and, just kind of make it fun. So, custom light shows plus hot cider sounds good. I'm an instrumentalist. All right. Larry, thank you very much for the dancing pair, or the exercising pair. I'm not sure, but it's a pair. It's a green pair. But I really appreciate that. Again, you guys don't have to do that, but I do appreciate it. It's very nice. But I think with that, unless anybody has any other questions, I will see you in December. We'll set up a Zoom link. Like I said, everybody can join in. Everybody can talk. We can see faces, put names to faces. I know who a lot of people are, but if you haven't seen them on the channel, you don't know. So with that, thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody hanging out. And like I said, I think we got some fun stuff for December and some other fun videos coming out, and maybe some other unique things that might not be expected coming up. So with that, thank you very much. Happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful December, and we'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Good night.